I am honored. Thank you so much. So we know what the title of this talk is. It's not a man's world. I love that I have men here. Thank you. That's fantastic. So I'm just going to share a little bit about my background and talk a bit more about how I ended up where I am, and then I'd love, questions. I was born in 59, raised in the 60s when, mom stayed home and baked cookies and dad brought home the bacon, and that was my world. The church that I attended was, I'll say, legalistic in that they, believed that was the role of the woman, was to be home and bake cookies. And I know a lot of people during that time certainly believed that was the right thing. And I struggled with that as I got older and became a woman. And I thought, I'm going to go back to my roots even further than that church and those churches. And I'm going to research, there's got to be things that talk about women and their role in the world. And so I latched on to a chapter in the Bible, Proverbs 31, that talks about a woman of noble character. And I'm going to paraphrase just a few here, but this has inspired me. This has been my inspiration. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. That's great. She's like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it's still night. She provides for her family. Love that. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. She makes linen garments and sells them. She speaks with wisdom. She watches over the affairs of her household. Her children arise and call her blessed. I love that. That inspires me. That gives me what I need to get up every day and do what I do. I started my career in this field 10 years ago as a designer. That is an acceptable woman's profession, and I enjoyed it. I learned design, and I worked with other builders. I worked for other builders, and I soon realized that every time the design was done, the client would then say, hey, now I need this kitchen remodeled. So who can I call? Do you know anybody? And I'd give contractor A, contractor B, contractor C. And every time I gave that card out, I gave hundreds of thousands, in some cases, dollars away. And I began to think, I don't like doing that. And I don't really get to finish that project. I started, it's kind of here and then along with the client, and I don't have that ability. Once I turn this card over to the client, that becomes this contractor's job. And I didn't like that feeling. So I did some research, looked into how I could become a general contractor, and studied for what I needed, applied, got my contractor's license, and then I immediately entrenched myself in the world of builders, most of whom are men. And I decided that, women, unfortunately, some have a reputation of, if they're going to be in a man's world, they've got to claw and scratch their way through, and I knew that that wasn't the right approach. It just goes against who I am individually anyway. So I decided to join the Master Builders Association, and I immediately was adopted in as a little sister with all of these big brothers. And I made a point of really getting through that gatekeeper club, so to speak, by seeking advice. I thirsted for their wisdom, and I loved that they were willing to mentor me. And through that, I learned a lot about not just general contracting, but also business in general. My interior design business at the time was small. It was, very easy to maintain, but getting into general contracting was liability insurance and L&I and all of these other things that, wasn't ever a part of my world. And through my big brothers, I really learned a lot about how to not just deal with that, but also how to deal with business in general. After several years of being part of that group, I was asked to be on the board, which again, quite an honor. And a couple years after that, was nominated to be the first woman president that the Master Builders of Pierce County ever had in 69 years of its beginning. So I was flattered, but I didn't stand there and say, hey, go women power, I'm the first woman. I just wanted to be part of the group. And the fact that they nominated me and asked me to do that was such a confirmation that whatever it was that I was doing at the time, it was working. So I think what I want to do today is it's a little bit of the background. I wanted to mostly talk about what it is like to be a woman in a man's world, which, construction is certainly thought of that way, and ways that I have learned to lead and be accepted as a woman in that trade. I'd say that, as I mentioned, certainly adopting these big brothers and having them teach me made a huge difference, because I got a lot of support from them. But I also learned that I had to have my own personal brand, and that in turn is the brand of the company. And so, what are my core values? You hear that a lot in business terms. I read a lot of business books, and it's always about a culture you're creating, a core value that you have. And I thought, I am a woman, and I'm happy to be a woman. I'm embracing it. I don't, I don't have a t-shirt with, rolled up sleeves. Not that there's anything wrong with wearing that, but I've chosen to say, I'm feminine, I'm a woman, I love it, I'm embracing it. And there are gifts that women do have that men may not. And there are gifts certainly that men have that women do not necessarily have. It's what makes up this wonderful world of a body of human beings, right? So I made sure that in the process that I treated everyone with dignity. I wanted to make sure that my clients were listened to, that our subcontractors are treated well and respected. Sometimes they're not, sometimes they're just treated like they're the ditch diggers, and no, that's not how we treat people, right? So I wanted to make sure that that we were known as a company that loved and embraced their subcontractors, loved and embraced the community, loved and embraced clients. They need to be treated with as much dignity as anyone else. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you have a client that's maybe a bit needy or a bit, they show their frustrations more than we would like, and yet they need to be heard. We need to stop and say, what is it that that's this underlying frustration? How can we help and make this different? I have 20 employees now, and I would say 17 of them are men. I think they're all there to stay, I hope, but I treat them like family. So once a month, I cook up a big breakfast at our office. Our office isn't like a normal office. It's a showroom. It has a full kitchen and an outdoor grilling station. And I mean, it's a great, it feels like a house actually. And we do shout outs. So every time one of the guys in the field did something special, we make sure that they get that shout out. And we are constantly trying to tell them how important what they do for our company is. If there's a problem, my door is always open. I don't care how busy I am sitting at that desk. If any of my guys come in and say, hey, can we talk? I put that pencil down and I open that door and listen to them. So leading with that sort of core value of treating people as family, as the most important thing in your life is what has truly helped our company be successful in so many ways. I read a book, and I read a lot of business books. It's I think, a necessity for an entrepreneur because sometimes you feel very alone. And the first book I ever read was A Girl's Guide to a $1 Million Business. And I remember thinking, wow, I'll never get there. I mean, that's like, whoa, $1 million. And about 3 years ago, we hit 1 million. And I remember taking that book out and thinking, I can't believe I did it. We did this. And as soon as we hit it, you know, that check went in, and I sort of had my own private drum roll. And within just minutes, I just thought, okay, now on to the next million. That's what you do. And since then, we've continued to grow every year, even during the toughest of times. So how did that happen? I mean, why did that happen? It's not because of me. I'm not some super person. It's because of the culture that was created in our company and the loyalty that we have from our employees. And it's just constantly reminding ourselves and the team that we have to treat people better than we treat ourselves. We have to embrace that philosophy, that way of thinking. I think probably the hardest thing being a woman in the trade that I'm in as a contractor, was initially not being taken so seriously, and I knew that. So what did I do? I thought about that, and so I decided to partner with someone who was a contractor, who looked like a contractor. And, you know, I'm not going to say I was the brains behind it, because he's a very smart guy. But together, we were able to kind of enter this world and be able to declare that we really are a general contractor, and that I, as the president, really am the contractor, and not in an arrogant or boastful way, but just to communicate that, you know, there is something about having a woman in that man's world. You know, women see things sometimes differently. There's layers of detail that we might note, and certainly my design background has helped that a lot. Because I do see layers of color and little mistakes, and if something's not mitered quite right, I'm going to notice it and try to catch that right away. So I know that that has certainly helped. But I have to say, I've known a lot of other women in business, and the biggest mistake that I have witnessed is not embracing who they are, and really just saying, hey, I do have something to contribute, and I'm going to build upon that in all the ways that a woman can do that. I'm going to stop there for a moment. Any questions, any comments? I'd like to hear from you. Now, what brought you here today? What brought you to this particular workshop? Tell me. What's your name?
Avery.
Avery.
Yes.
Love it. It's easy to remember.
Something that I'm going through is developing an app, but I have no programmer experience. And something that I kind of related to was how you said that you had a little bit of experience for the interior design part, but you were just giving away all the other jobs. And so
Right.
is the way, I heard you say the way that you fixed the problem of feeling like you could basically conveying to your clients that you could give something to them was by partnering with somebody that was already in the field.
Correct.
And do you think that kind of goes with all businesses in the way of, for me, I have no outline experience, and how, I guess another thing for me is, since you already had a lot of the clients because of you were an interior designer, how would you suggest finding that partner that would work well for you if you didn't have those clients?
That's a great question. The old saying, you're at the right place at the right time. I do think, I think that is key, but it also has to stem from a passion that you have. I mean, there was a time when I said, I'll sell buttons. I don't care. I love business. I love it. I love everything about it. Now, I've had gut-wrenching moments where payroll's coming up and where's it coming from because this client didn't pay or this client chose to walk away and not pay at all or whatever. But you brush yourself off and you persevere and you get through it. If you're passionate, Avery, about business and creating this, then you start looking for that special person. You start inquiring. You start doing just what you did right now with me. I have somebody in mind that I may hook you up with. Just from you sharing that, I have a friend who does that very thing. And he loves mentoring students. So when we're done here, I want to, but do you see what just happened?
Yeah.
You didn't know that I knew somebody, right?
Yeah.
But you said it out loud. You're thirsting for that opportunity. And that's what I did. I thirsted for it. I said, I like what I do. I want that. And I'm going to go after it. And it's so empowering when you suddenly start having people come to you. It's like, wow, I just had to say this one thing and throw out one little line and here it is. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited for you, Avery. I want to help you. What's your name?
Travis.
Travis, okay.
So you said you started renting Willow about 10 years ago.
Yes.
So would that would have been kind of right in the middle of the downturn, right?
Yes, you're the math guy. Doing all the numbers.
So I'm just curious about, like, I don't know, like mentally how you faced it and built yourself up to
Thank
move
you.
forward.
That's a great question. And so the saying, ignorance is bliss, a lot of educators don't like to hear that statement, but in my case, it was very much that. I started the company, the Interior Design Division, in 2006. Did that for a couple years, and then 2008, I thought, I'm going to be a general contractor. So I'm the new kid on the block. And that is right about when things were starting to tank. And I just felt like a naive little girl in this world where I was watching the news, I was hearing that people were dropping off, the face of the planet. What is all this about? Basically, I wasn't living fat. You've heard that term at the time. I was new. And so I wasn't leveraged. Everything that I had, we had rented a little office at the time in the Proctor District. And it was small rent. I, had my own little savings. I had another job. I cashed in my little bit of retirement, and that's how I started the company. So while everybody else was owing banks money and suppliers money, we weren't there yet. We were just paying cash, paying cash, paying cash. And so we kind of breezed through it. I mean, in part because we really were the newbies on the block. I've thought a lot about that because I know there's always talk out there that we're going to have it hit again. Well, now I'm at a point where not leveraged by a bank, still not. But I do have 20 human beings that work for me. And when I did the math, which I'm not terribly good at, I figured that there are about 65 mouths that our company is responsible for. In fact, one of our guys just had another baby. Stop! Every time you have more kids, I don't sleep that night because I'm like, okay, we've got more children to feed. But that's why I do what I do. I love it. I'm not trying to, I don't have my eyes on a yacht or anything else. I really am doing this, I think, as a legacy for the generation of workers. I have a lot of millennials, and I love them to pieces. And they, we've talked about them, buying in at some point. And so I'm doing this truly as a legacy for them. And so now, if things tank, we're going to have to be really clever and really smart, because in my heart of hearts, I don't want to let any of those, dads or moms go, because I know they have this huge responsibility. So what does that do? That makes me work hard. I'm the salesperson of the company, and I go out and I sell and I sell and I sell. And even when we have more work than we think we can handle, I'm just like, okay, that's fine, but what about December? I go out and I sell again. And I think that a real true entrepreneur is you never rest on your laurels, ever. And you've heard that term before. You can't. I mean, maybe you could take an hour break, but other than that, you just have to get back on there and do what you do best. Our company, like a lot of companies, I say we're a body with 2 arms and legs and a brain and all the other things that make up your body, right? So I can't do a lot of this stuff. I'm president of the company, but I do a couple things well. And I know that, not in a bragging way, but just that's what I have to do to make this company keep that flywheel going, right? And a big part of that for me is selling. I'm not the math person. I still count my fingers and where's the calculator? And it's a multi-million-dollar, company, and yet the president is still counting on her fingers. Okay, so I know that about myself. I admit what I'm not good at, and I hire people who are really good at that. So, yeah. Thank you. Great question. Yes, what's your name?
I'm Michael.
Michael. Thank you.
You said something just as you were answering his question, Travis's question, about making the company available to your staff, to your team, buy-ins and things like that. If that's not too personal a question, I'd love to know what your thoughts are behind that, because that's something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, it's not too personal, and again, my strong suit is not in all the numbers.
Right.
So we incorporated, when I first started the company, Wren & Willow Interior Design, it was just sole proprietorship. And as soon as we got, I got my contractor's license in 2008, that's when we became an S Corp. So we have shares. Right now, I'm the sole shareholder, but we have kind of an incentive plan that we started about a year ago for the team, base salary with some incentives based on some sales, et cetera. And so the next step and it's not going to happen tomorrow. We still have a ways to go. But the next steps would be for the few individuals that have shown interest to actually buy in now, and buy shares, basically. Now, what I've said to them is, I'm open to this, and we'll get a professional to come in and actually show us step by step, how to do this. But remember, it's not just about dividends at the end of the year. It's when times are tough. It's when November and December hit. In my world, it's dead. It means that when you buy in, you also pay in, and you have to help. Because right now it's come out of my bank account, and I don't think there's much left. So those things are important to remember when you're wanting to open that up to your team. But I know one of the most successful businesses in the world is Southwest Airlines, and again, one of the best books I read a lot of business books. Built to Last, Good to Great, Jim Collins. And what Southwest Airlines chose to do is to sell it's an employee-run company, and the customer service is like nothing else because they have an ownership. They just a tiny piece is sometimes all you need to say, hey, this is my company, right? So I think it's a great business model to have. It's just we're not quite there yet, but it's certainly in the cards. Yeah.
What are
Thank
your
you.
thoughts about sharing?
Tell me your name.
I'm Mikhail Lichtenstein.
Perfect.
Sharing.
Thank you.
There is a trend towards sharing economy-based companies where they're going towards the co-op model, where it's not that there are shares where 1, 2, 3 people control the most of the company, but it's more level based, and to make a decision like to sell the company to a bigger company, you have to have the majority of the share or the co-op members. I belong to a stock agency. I'm a commercial photographer.
Nice.
And that is pretty unique in unlike Getty and Shutterstock. It's all co-op owned. So all the decisions are voted on and discussed within the internal forums.
Got it.
And so then the people who actually run the co-op at the top have to take that into consideration. They cannot sell the company, for example, to Getty, or make drastic decisions without the member participation. What do you think about that as a model for, and there are other companies in other industries who are taking notice of that, and they're wanting to bring what we call it as sustainable stock, a sustainable participation in the company, where it's member driven. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently on that. I guess I would hesitate. I started the company, so I can only speak personally of how it would affect me. I started the company literally from nothing, a seed. And I've known of other companies that have sort of shared and, done more of a co-op. And the culture that came from that little tiny seed, I would be concerned would change. And so I'm not sure that I would personally want to do that, because you have these other entities. The employees who have shown an interest in buying some stock in the company, they're part of the culture. I mean, they are completely entrenched in it, and I think a company can risk that. And if it's not their number one, then I think it's great. I mean, it's obviously working for some companies, but I personally would have to really pause and see what that would do to that. So yeah, That's all I can say is based on my own, my own sort of gut feeling of it. But again, I think it's obviously successful. It's a trend starting. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thanks for the questions. Yes, Thomas, you have a question? I knew that.
When you talk about, purchasing stock for your company and also with your employee, what characteristics are you looking for an individual being part of your organization? Because you can have a talented
Oh, yeah.
person, but if they can't get along, they can't get along.
Yeah, right. So, bear with me here. Humility is at the top of my list of a character trait that I find very important to fit into our culture. And what do I mean by that? Well, we all know what humility means, right? But being able to be teachable, someone that is willing, when you're truly humble, you're listening to that other person, you're not trying to just sort of ignore and dismiss and think you have all the answers. And that can apply to any field, even selling buttons. But for us in particular, we go into people's homes and we remodel, we build, we do tenant improvement work. So we're entering their space. And if we come in as if we know everything, move out of the way, the heroes are here now, it's bad on many levels. And so when I hire people, that is when I'm interviewing, I love that people are, when you're interviewed, right, you want to make sure that you are telling your best things. You're not going to go in all slumpy and say, I'm just really not good at this and I'm really bad at that. I mean, nobody wants to even see that. But there is a point where arrogance can tip it. And if I sense in an interview that there's some arrogance, I just think they're not going to fit into our culture, because we're all about, serving others and serving each other and making sure the client knows that they are the ones directing this thing here. We're coming in with all of our talent and expertise. So that's, if I were to, in a word, to say what I'm looking for in a human that, we're hiring, men or women, or men and women, that's a quality that I'm always looking for. And my antennas are so out there that I can hear that arrogance, and I just think this is going to be trouble. And I don't hire them.
Yeah, it's just an example when you were doing that remodel in my neighborhood. There's a lot of activities, and one day I came back from the gym, and it was like early in the morning, and one of your workers' truck was halfway in the road and on the property, and I couldn't get around. And he saw me, he rushed us out, and he just profusely apologized. I'm so sorry. And,
wow.
And he just...
That's my guys.
Yeah, and they moved the truck and got out, make sure that I was okay. And I was just like, wow, that's never happened for a general contractor before. They usually give me the bird and say, go around, So,
yeah, thank you. Thank you for, and see, I didn't know that. I mean, who knew? They didn't know that. And that is the kind, now they're still human, okay? Don't get me wrong. But that's the kind of thing that with a culture, which again, I wouldn't want to lose this, this is the kind of thing that we're trying to, we train the guys all the time. This is how you treat people. And they buy in. I mean, they're already there, obviously. Avery, do you have another good question?
So a lot of this talk, I feel like, is about the culture that you kind of brought to your company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, you express to them that they are important, which I hadn't really, that makes complete sense. Listening, no matter what, creating culture, embracing who you are. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of bring that in? Because everyone's such a different person. Everyone's so different. How did you create the culture that people are expected to come in and have a fun day on whatever day, whatever day of the month or week that you guys have that barbecue or kind of thing. How do you kind of develop that? I mean, I just feel like it was it just like, hey, we're having this on this day, it's gonna be fun. You know what I mean?
It's like anything. You have to cultivate that sort of relationship. It doesn't just happen overnight. Everybody is different. I mean, as president of the company, I don't really even do the design anymore. It was what I brought to the table for a long time, but now I'm sort of HR department. And it's, when I said you put the pencil down when someone walks in, I don't care if it's one of the guys out in the field or my lead carpenter, a superintendent. I just look at them and say, well, come on, let's talk about this. And I think over time, when you cultivate that and they know that they're really important, then they kind of, without even realizing it, they're buying into the culture. They love that. Who doesn't? Who doesn't want to be told, you matter, your kids matter, you matter to me? I mean, we were created to need that. And so I, as a boss and a leader, I love that. I love people, so that helps. But I love to look at each and every person, just like each and every person in this room, and just say, you're unique, and you're unique, and you're different, and you're different. You're the only woman in this room, besides me. So you're different. But it's just, I love that, and I love to make people feel like they really matter. They are a life. They have a soul. And that matters to me, and they know it. So it just happens. It's like you take care of your garden, and one day your flowers blossom. You're like, I don't know how it all happened, but between the rain and the sun and some fertilizer, there it is. And that is how it is when you lead a company. It really is.
That is what makes a company successful. I mean, anybody
Yes.
can sell something, but
It's
when
true.
you are the person that is standing at the front of the company saying, you're important to me, and when you have customers, like Avery, when you go out to get clients and customers, if you're personable with them and you are interactive and you show that you have concern for them, if you treat every client and every customer like they're the most important client and the most important customer, you will always have more customers than you can handle.
So true. Well said. You bet.
I go to Chamber of Commerce
Mhm.
meetings
Yeah.
and different associations, and I often hear potential employers and employers complaining that they cannot find the right people to hire. The people don't show up on time, they don't do the work, they have to supervise them all the time. But then, as you talk to them, you find out that they're paying the minimum wage they can.
Right.
They're willing to pay the minimum amount of money.
Yeah.
They're delegating tasks and kind of micromanaging. There is no delegation of work and responsibilities. They sit down with the person and say, well, you have to answer the phone 8 hours a day, same thing, right? So there is no variety of work, no real responsibility.
That's right.
So I think not just telling people that you respect them and their position, but actually showing it through fair wages.
Absolutely.
Not the minimum wages, but
Yep.
fair wages.
I agree.
And actually delegating work that would be interesting to them. And maybe they necessarily can do it, but you need help training them.
Well said. Yes, and I think everything that you mentioned, this, it equals them not feeling important, them not feeling like they're really, they matter, right? When you are paid a wage that you believe is appropriate, when you're talked to and said, hey, how do you like your job? Well, I don't. I'm answering the phone all day. I want to get out there and visit with people. Okay, well, let's talk about that. I refer to our company sometimes as a bus with lots of seats, and I didn't make that up. It's some business book I read that is probably good to great. So, but I use it a lot. And there have been many times in our company when I've had an individual doing a particular job, and I have watched and I've been frustrated and thought, they're not good at that, but I like this person. This person has gifts in other areas. So I'm going to take you from this seat and I'm going to move you here and we're going to try you out. I mean, I'll try every seat on the bus if I need to. It's probably not the best business decision at times, but the team knows how much I care about them. Now again, if there's arrogance, if they're not meeting the culture, then they have to go, because that's going to destroy the culture. But if they buy into the culture, they genuinely want to be part of the company, I'm just putting them in the wrong seat, then shifting them around. That says, you know what, I care about you. Not only this company, but I care about you and where you're going to fit best. And you know what happens? The company excels, just like you said. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Jen. Just like Jen said, that when you do all this, you're going to get it back more than you even imagined. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's starting at that root, at that seed, and treating people a certain way. So, yeah.
I have one more question.
Keep asking. I don't know what time you need to be done, but I guess we're still okay.
I keep getting stuck on the embrace who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think personally, just from going to Travis's doing the motivational Mondays, and just from going there,
Oh, wonderful.
you know, I've really just grown just from the past couple weeks. You know,
Fantastic.
a lot. But what I totally see as a problem for me is I don't know how to share that with other people. You know, I don't know how to share with Travis or with someone that doesn't really feel comfortable in their own shoes to kind of express themselves, you know, and kind of embrace themselves so that they're not becoming what I've been asking, or, you know, what I have been talking about. You know, like I'd say, oh, I love to hike, and then the next second they're like, oh, I like hiking too. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And, you know, even if they hated hiking. And I guess what I'm wondering is how can you build that culture, or I know you're back to that, to make people feel comfortable enough to really be like, man, I don't like hiking. I like doing this and this and this.
So it takes time, Avery. You have to earn that trust. You have to build that. And you need a lot of patience, because everyone has a wall and everyone has a facade that they put on. It's one thing when you're entering a room and just socializing or networking, you're going to put on your best face, and many people will say what they think you want them to hear, correct? So you have to build that. Let's do our little garden illustration again. You plant that seed, and you water it, wait for the sun to come. It's kind of dry, so more water. And that is how you cultivate relationships. And you need to present yourself as somebody who's very open, who doesn't just say, yeah, tell me what I want to hear. You have, that comes from within, to say, look, I really do care about you. Tell me whatever you need to tell me, and we'll work on it together. Why? Because I care about you. I know that seems odd, but I really, truly do. And that's the kind of person, leader, businessman you want to be, is somebody that, you know, that people come to.
As a leader, you gotta be willing to accept that criticism.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, sometimes ego
Yes.
my an ego, and I said, don't talk to me that way. You know, but sometimes
That's why he's sitting way over there.
Come in, Thomas. Let's have a therapy session.
If you want that feedback, you gotta
Yeah.
realize that sometimes that rawness comes and it's not really kind, and you gotta accept that.
It's true. And so that humility that I'm looking for, it has to start here, right? I have to be approachable. And I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that I just, you know, bake in that. I have to swallow hard. I've had to apologize many, many times, especially to clients. I'm so sorry that happened. We will make sure that you're absolutely right. Rebuke, rebuke, rebuke. If I kept defending myself, my team watches me, which is scary, but they do. So if they see me apologizing and say, no, they are right, we have to honor this. This is what I told them we were going to do. We need to do it. then you're going to get the person who, you know, is running out apologizing. He's part of my team, this guy. But if he witnessed me saying, no, we're always right, everyone else is bad, customer's always wrong, well, then they're not going to continue that. It's just like you've got these great little, I don't know, wings.
I got a question on entrepreneurship. I mean, personally, do you think entrepreneurs are made or are they born with it, of being entrepreneurs?
Good question. I have always been a leader, little bossy, maybe. So I think for someone like myself, it was kind of a natural thing to eventually get into. I wasn't, 25 saying, I want to one day own a company. It's just that over the years, things that I did find myself enjoying that role of leading. So I don't know if it's part of the DNA. I know that we all have our own individual scorecard. For me, selling is a scorecard. If I can get out and make a sale, I'm just like, yes, I did it. So I think you can learn how to be an effective entrepreneur, but I do feel that you're kind of either a born leader, as they say, or not necessarily, and that's okay. We're not all meant to be bossy little things, right? I mean, some of us have to be followers, but wow, you can contribute. Not everybody can be the head. But without this arm, I'm stuck. I can't drive, I can't write, because I'm right-handed. It's a lot. I can't talk. That's right. Being Italian, I think I forgot to mention that early on. I can't really talk without both of these things. So, but yes, I mean, I think there's certainly a DNA in there. I'd love to hear what a business professor's. Are any of you business professors? I'd like to hear your actual take on that. Yes.
I'd like to know kind of, you skipped from 1959 to 2006.
I did. What did I do?
Well, you said you were born in 59, and here's the company, Wren and Willow,
Yes.
as a design company. But what happened in between? Like, how did you go from, I think you said Philadelphia to here to creating a design company?
It's just
like,
a big blur.
Yeah, right.
No, that's great. If we have time, yes, we still have a few minutes. I got married, still married, 38 years. I had 3 kids. I worked I worked for a private Christian high school where I recruited students in. So a lot of my marketing brain came from that. And I think over the years, I always wanted to do design. I did it for years and years on my own, advising friends, neighbors. And then I decided, I like this. And I was in a place in my life where I could go to design school and did that to legitimize this professionally. And then the rest is what you already heard, 2006. So, yeah, it's my life. Yes.
I've got two questions. One, what book you recommend for entrepreneurs? Mm-hmm. And then 2, and this is just kind of something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Just kind of, there had to have been, I think Tom kind of touched on some haters. Just like some people who were just like, no, you can't do this, or I'm sure you've experienced some of that in this process, and just kind of how you've approached that from a mental standpoint.
That's great.
Heart standpoint.
So the first business book I mentioned that I read, A Girl's Guide to $1 Million Company, is, or $1 Million Business, I guess it is actually. Her name is Susan Wilson Solovic. And I can write that down here. But she actually talks about that. And she says that those people who are in your life, especially when you're starting out, because there's so many things you're learning. You are like a 3-year-old in the forest, just trying to find your way out and in and through to the sunlight. And there are a lot of people that will be in your life. Family members, unfortunately, they're the people who are closest to you. Whether it's jealousy or they're just bent in not being happy for you, or they just, nobody can do this. You have to actually get them out of your life. And it's tough. And I had a few of those, and I just kind of stopped calling them and kind of went my own way and didn't answer the phone, and because I knew that they weren't people that were going to really help me, encourage me, because I didn't know what I was getting to. I certainly didn't in 2006 think I'd be here. It's a wonderful gift to not know the future. I know a lot of us want to know the future, but it's really a gift not to because there are so many hurdles that you have to go through, so many sleepless nights, so many agonizing moments when you're in business that if you knew what was ahead, you'd be like, I'm out, no thanks. So you have to start with having people in your world to be kind of your cheerleaders. And that's why when I jumped into the Master Builders and I had all my big brothers, I knew that in order to learn, I couldn't come in and just say, well, move over, boys, because here I am. I knew that wouldn't work. I knew that I had to say to a big brother, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing, but I really want to do this. And they loved that role. Everyone wants to be a mentor, right? I mean, that feels good. I don't care who you are or how old you are, you love being a mentor to someone. And so for me, it was a great way to get those positives and the negatives out. To answer your other question, there are so many great business books. Simon Sinek has a book called, I just had it. Yes, thank you. Start with Why. And that's a great business book to kind of help you understand, well, why am I doing this? So the reason I didn't start a button business is because I wasn't really in love with buttons. I wasn't really passionate about it. I'm passionate about interiors. I'm passionate about creating a home and a haven for my clients. So that's why I started what I did. But that book is a great one. Tipping Point, I've read all of Gladwell's books. Tipping Point, Outliers, and Blink. Have any of you read Gladwell? I'd say Blink is my favorite. It's not technically business book, but when you're in business, a lot of what you have to listen to is your instinct. I think women, maybe, I've read this somewhere, I'm not making it up, tend to listen, maybe in fact it was Blink, I'm not sure, but tend to listen to that internal voice. And a lot of people, women as well, have pushed it away like, no, it's the sixth sense that's happening. It's not. It's truly a God-given gift, and you better listen to it. When you don't listen to your instinct, there's trouble ahead. And I've learned when I can feel it like right here, and when I feel it, it's like, whoa, we got to stop and talk about this. Whether it's taking on a job, whether it's a potential client, whatever that is. And that book, Blink, helped me realize that is a true, it's a whole brain thing. It isn't just some, out there, not a real, I don't know, technical thing that happens. So that's another great one. And I mentioned already Built to Last and Good to Great. Built to Last is a good book. I think Good to Great is fantastic. It talks about culture. It talks about how you treat people. If you want to create that company, it is like a roadmap on how to do that. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's the one that talks about the bus and the seats, and it's true. Yeah, that guy's a genius. I would love to meet him someday. He's fantastic.
Which book was the one that you mentioned Flywheel at some point during this
I
conversation?
think that's Good to
Good
Great.
to Great.
Yeah.
Because last week, Daniel Byrne also mentioned the Flywheel
Oh,
concept,
good.
so-
Okay. And
so
did he mention Good to Great?
I
It's
didn't
either
write it
Built
down
to
yet,
Last
but-
or Good to Great. Yeah. Yeah, those business books, I'll tell you, many times at night, I have my iPad. I don't have a book library anymore. I just, because I read at night, because I wake up like, payroll's in 2 weeks. Okay, I'll read. And so they've become my friends. So at 3 in the morning, there I am, iPad and all, Jim Collins, you know, Simon Sinek. Those are
Don't
great.
you think that the company you have really depends on the person who is presiding over it? Because if someone is micromanager, not a good leader, no matter what books they read, no matter what workshops they
You betcha.
go to, they won't have a company where their employees are happy. But the
Absolutely.
person who is a good leader,
Mhm.
doesn't matter what books they read, they'll
Mhm.
probably lead well.
Yes,
So it's
it's
more about the person and not.
absolutely.
I feel like so many people like reading business books, but I
Mhm.
think really it might help correct the course a little bit, mostly just kind of our experiences.
It's like what Thomas asked. You know, are you a born leader? Are you a born entrepreneur, or do you learn it? And I think that you have to inside embrace what you're reading, or you're absolutely right. It's just going to be a lot of words that you can check off and say, yep, another book on my shelf that I read. Well, that's not necessarily a born leader. A born leader really wants to eat up all that they possibly can.
It's like nature versus nurture. I don't know if I agree that how you were born, that's how you're gonna go through life, right?
Mhm.
It's just whether you have the capacity to learn.
Yes.
In college, I've known students who were very smart, but they weren't very ambitious. They were a little lazy. So, but
Right.
those who are determined,
Yes.
will probably go further, even if they don't have the innate ability or the genius in them.
But they want to learn. That's the key. They have a thirst. You have to have that. You have to desire to be a certain way. Look, obviously, I'm not like I was when I was 5 years old. I was a brat, so I hope not. I hope I'm not that person anymore. But I've been eager to learn. I've been eager to want to be a better leader. So you have to have something that's motivating you to do that, to read the right books, to surround yourself with the right people. So there's got to be even just a little flicker in there, you know? Okay, anything else? I see Thomas is walking. That must mean it's time to wrap up.